You're on, Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate Cook, and I'm an aircraft restoration specialist here at the Intrepid Museum. Today, what we'll be doing, if you remember a couple of weeks ago when I was on, or if you weren't able to join us, I was working on using different solvents and methods with scrapers and things to get underneath these fasteners to be able to remove this panel so we can see what we're dealing with underneath, which is most likely a lot of rust. So what I'm going to start doing is taking out the fasteners first. But first, I did two, and I want to show you sometimes what happens when things rust out. So what we end up getting sometimes, these are supposed to have further posts on them that can turn into securing things. And when I eventually got these out, they were just stubs. So these two I will actually need to replace. They are no longer a viable fastener to have on this machine. If nothing else, because they will leak because they can't actually get far enough down. The only reason they were in there is because they were rusted to it. So hopefully the other ones are a bit better. I'm going to put on my mask because I may need to use some of this Corrosion X to be able to loosen some of these in case they are still a little stuck. And of course, safety glasses that are stuck to my leg. On a panel like this, you always, because this is pretty large and heavy, you always want to start at the bottom, because if you start at the top, it will fall off when you get to the bottom. I've had that happen before. It is not pleasant. Hopefully, it's coming out. So what I'm going to do with these is I have a bit of just plain white vinegar. You can buy it in the grocery store. And something that we do is let these soak for about 24 hours in the white vinegar because they are very rusted once again. This one, fortunately, has the entire post. It's not broken. I can reuse this. So we plop it in the vinegar, and we'll just let that sit until tomorrow afternoon. And then I will clean them off, and I will corrosion protect them, lubricate, and be able to reuse them eventually when I put this panel down.
Hey, Kate, for our viewers that have just joined us this week, can you give us a quick recap of the actual thing that you're working on, the item that you're working on, and how relevant it is, why it's relevant to the museum?
Oh, sure. I totally forgot. This is the starter cart that was used on our A12 or any A12 to get the engines up and running. So what I have here, it hasn't been touched in a long time. There's a lot of corrosion. It usually sits out underneath our A12 so you can actually make the correlation. Starter carts are used on many different aircraft that have engines so large that they simply can't ignite on their own. This is from the late 60s, and it was also, this kind of cart would also be used on the SR-71. Oh, good. Another useful. Sometimes you need to use a little leverage just to get them out if they get stuck. Now this one is missing a small amount of the catch there. This is still okay because most of it is there. Once I clean this up, I can strengthen that and we can be able to use this fastener as well. So they come in varying degrees of really good to awful. one. Now that I've gotten all of these out, I can carefully lift this panel. Hopefully, oh, cool. It's not totally rusted. It is very heavy. And I'm actually just going to move it over here, out of the way. So, Liam, if you want to come around this way. People can see. So, you can see how really rusted this is. I mean, it comes off right in my hand. So what I will need to do here is clean all this out. I will use a wire brush and some heavy Scotch-Brite. Clean all this out, vacuum it all out, and then use different solvents to mitigate the rust. So to take off as much as possible gently, but also simply stop the corrosion. We will never be able to get all of it out. At this point, I'm also going to drop the instrument panel so we can see more of what's in there as well. So on this side, I have the instrument panel, but I have already taken quite a bit of paint off the front of it. I will need to repaint that and do some of the new labels. I've already unscrewed it. Full disclosure, unscrewing this and getting the hinge to work took about a cumulative 20 hours of trial and error. So in here, we have all of the dials that are hooked up to different hoses. Most of these are no longer hooked up to the engines or to their electrical components, out of one, safety, and two, frequently when we get items, they've already been stripped or decommissioned or something else, where this is another item on our flight deck that will never work again without millions of dollars. So there's quite a bit of rust in here as well, but I'll start on that side to try and get out as much as possible. And then once I'm done stripping that side, I'll come to this side and start looking at the wires and getting some of that cleaned up. Once again, usually it's easier to start low and then go high. When we vacuum, we just use shop vacs. This is called a festool. It's actually very versatile. We also use these to sand because the vacuum function will suck in most of the dust, not necessarily all of it. But it's an excellent tool for anything that requires suction and cleaning. I just discovered. In here, this surface is actually not bad. So I will gently Scotch Brite this and clean it up, and then use a chemical to help with keeping the rust out of there. This is another Corrosion X that helps kill rust and corrosion. And I'll be able to use that on this first to get everything set. So yeah.
Okay, we have a question, Kate. Approximately how long does your team work on any project at a given time?
Oh, that's a good question. It depends on the project completely. This was pulled in here the end of December, just before the holidays, and I will be finished with this the end of March. Well, it's March now, the end of this month. Part of that, I was hoping to have it done by the end of February. Part of that is because I discovered a bit more corrosion than I was hoping to find, and that's something that we needed to make sure we took care of. Other things, like we are currently also working on our A12 and refurbishing that. That is a 2 to 3 year project, particularly because we can only work on it from spring to fall. So about April to October before it gets too cold for us to really be out on the deck, and difficult to manage. I don't know if you can see it. The helicopter that's behind me over here, it's called our Chickasaw, and that has been about a year and a half, but part of that is because with COVID, we couldn't be on ship for quite a few months. So it truly depends on the project. One more example is that we have a Skyraider, 1945 Skyraider out on deck that came to us in awful condition. It was out in the field, nobody took care of it. We estimated in bird's nest alone that we took out about 100 pounds of bird nest, just to start and clean it up.
What's the rust product that you're using?
So this particular one is called Corrosion X.
Yeah.
And this one specifically helps seize rust and corrosion, and seal everything to be water resistant.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, in places that are really bad, like this, we have a Loctite product that's kind of a gel that helps pull up the rust very gently. And it's one that, it's weird to say this with rust, but you put the gel on and then you actually wipe it off with just plain water. And then I would actually use this anyway to help with the water, like the proofing and everything else.
Where do you buy this? Is it special stuff, or is it?
The hardware store.
Yeah.
Honestly, this kind of thing you can probably find at Walmart.
Uh-huh.
The Loctite, you might actually have to go to Home Depot or something else, but you can certainly find them at your average hardware store.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, in here, I'll probably be able to just use that Corrosion X. here, where there's a significant amount of rust, I'm gonna wanna use that Loctite product to pull some of it off, so we can seize this and make sure that it's not gonna rust as quickly again.
So I've got a question. Are there any other items that aren't aircraft that the restoration team has worked on?
Well, if you're counting the space shuttle as an aircraft, we have only, other than this, we actually have only done aircraft things. We are very specific and very specialized in what we do. But if we had other items like this, we would certainly also be working on those. So the only one that I wouldn't consider a regular aircraft would be the space shuttle, and we also maintain that. And you can see things just come off in my hand. I mean, some of this is.
Are you going to be replacing the metal infrastructure of the structure of the car?
No. Thankfully, everything is in really good shape for the most part. And the rust that we see and the corrosion that we see is workable. We can do the best that we can with that. And a unique problem that we have is being an outdoor museum on the Hudson, where we still get some of the salt air, we get the brackish environment, and that makes things a lot harder to deal with and speeds up a lot of the decomposition. So we have to make sure that we really keep track of what we use and what's in and out, and the things that we've had to do, because sometimes, like with the screws that took me forever, it's a learning curve and trying to figure that out. So we document what we've done, what we've used, to make sure that the next time we can have the same result. Something I'm going to use before I apply this Corrosion X is simply a little bit of regular alcohol. You can also just buy this at the store. We use the 70%. You don't need anything higher than that. And it's simply just to get the rest of the true dirt out of here. So when I put the corrosion stuff on it, it stays instead of just being covering up more junk, and then it's unstable.
I've got a question from Aaron. Aaron would like to know, are all the restorations being restored to full or near functionality, or just simply showpieces?
There's nothing simple about it. I got to start there. With our pieces, nothing will be functional. Again, we actually get a lot on loan from the Marines and the Navy, and they take out everything. For example, the cockpit in the Skyraider didn't even have a seat. I fell through a very large hole twice into the fuselage, not paying attention. That's safety's number one here, we promise. But it's one of those things where we really do our best to preserve and conserve what we have for the future, which is honestly more important than making these functional again. They need to last for generations, and that's our hope. So it's really cool when you go to museums that do have flight-worthy items that they do fly, but we are really focused on doing the best that we can to just keep these, honestly, as happy as possible. And you can see how gross it gets in there. And that's simply from cleaning. So we're trying to get all of this out of here, or as much as possible, because like I said, otherwise the corrosion just sits on top of all this dust and this dirt and can honestly be just swept out. The other bonus of using alcohol is that it dries quickly. So we don't have to wait a long time, and it's very gentle, surprisingly, on a lot of our machines. I'm going to use some of the Corrosion X. I prefer, in something like this, to spray on a towel first, just because it can get, even with the little applicator, it can get all over the place. And there are places that you don't want this to be on. So I'm going to spray it on a towel and wipe it through. And I'll probably do 2, maybe 3 wipes of this. Also, it's gross and it smells funny.
Okay, I've got a question. Have all aircraft in the Intrepids collection required some form of restoration?
Yes, which is incredible when you think about it. We pull in aircraft anywhere between 6 and 8 years to pull in each one to kind of give it a refurbish. Some of them need to have metal replaced. There's a lot of corrosion. Others simply need a good paint cleanup and washing in general, and then we can send them back out. The only one that was flight worthy was our Sea Cobra that actually landed on the deck, and that one was in the best shape that we had on deck for a while, and now it's actually in here for a refurbishment, a repaint. We didn't find too much corrosion, which was really nice and helpful, but we do bring them in very frequently, and each plane here has been worked on. Now, as I said earlier, I'm not going to do up here with the corrosion X yet because I want to use a stronger product to try and get off some of this pitting, which can also cause issues with trying to seal this and taking care of the corrosion management. So I will be skipping doing the really heavy areas and looking at doing the cleaner ones. Something like this, which is our fuel tank for this. I will still corrosion the outside of this, but the bonus is that I really only need to use some alcohol on this to clean it up, and then I can add the corrosion in. So I'll also be doing that today, which is now, honestly. Oh yeah, that's my favorite, is when I can make a handprint out of it. I really enjoy doing that. It's very satisfying. This is another surface, even though it's out in the open. I prefer to put the corrosion X on a towel first. One, so I make sure I have complete coverage, and two, so it doesn't spray all over me with backsplash.
Okay, we got a question. What's your favorite project that you've worked on at Intrepid?
I have a soft spot for the Skyraider because that was my first project that I worked on here. And I learned so much from riveting to applying paint properly to like mitigating corrosion. I never really worked with something like that. However, my absolute favorite project that I look forward to every spring is the A-12. That is my favorite plane of all time. It's so cool. And you just walking out on the deck and just seeing that jet black out there is one of my favorite things. And I really enjoy, it's actually kind of cathartic to be out there. I call it my fortress of solitude because usually I'm the only one out there. But that one is a very cool project to do. For example, there is rubberized paint on the bottom that I'm working on peeling off slowly. It comes off in these huge sheets. But it's kind of like being an archaeologist. Underneath, I found different stencils that we didn't know were there, that when we do the final repaint, we will put those stencils back on. So you never know what you're gonna find. And I mean, having that be my favorite plane anyway, that's my dream. I was so excited when we started that project, and I'm still excited about it. if you haven't noticed, we go through approximately 40 billion towels. So if you would like to make a donation to the Intrepid, a lot of that comes to us for equipment, which is very nice. Also, support us anyway. We're really cool.
You guys get a lot of corporate sponsorship, don't you, to help support? I know that they help clean some of the aircraft and wash them. Tell us about that program that you.
So we love working with our corporate sponsors. It's really cool and it's a fun day for us. And part of it is they do our work for us, which is awesome. But we get to really learn about the corporations and the people working there. They usually take about a half day. They come anywhere between 8 and 9, depending on the project, and usually leave around lunchtime or a little bit after. And they have done all kinds of work for us. We split them into teams depending on how many people we have, and sometimes they're painting, sometimes they're washing airplanes, which is more fun than it sounds, I promise. Sometimes we get to teach them how to sand, how to apply different chemicals and things to make it practical. And it's just a really cool thing to see how excited they are to come as well. It's not just us excited to meet them. And it's just it's a neat opportunity to have people come who wouldn't normally get to do this, and who may not normally come to Intrepid anyway. So they get to come and see what we're all about. They get free admission to go look around the ship and everything after they're done working with us. And we usually do that in the summer and the fall. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, last summer, we weren't able to have anybody. But hopefully, fingers crossed, this summer, we can have a few people come and help us out again.
Because volunteers are a big thing, a part of what you guys do, isn't it? You rely a lot on people coming in and just helping out and, interested in what you guys do.
Oh, huge. We miss all of our volunteers. Most of them are usually retired guys who were in the military, who have airplane background, but some come in. We get some younger people who come in completely fresh, have no idea sometimes how to even use a drill. And we really enjoy working with them to not only teach them things, but also have them work side by side with us. And we truly miss our volunteers. We're also hoping that we can get our regular volunteers back during the summer. They usually work part-time for us, and they come on random days. We try and spread them out. But with only 2 of us here in the hangar, it's a lot of work, and it can be very daunting without having an extra set of hands, and just having even the camaraderie and the support there as well.
So I've got another question. What's next for this project that you're working on?
So I will be back. Peters is on camera next week, same place, same time, and he will be working on our Sea Cobra. I honestly have no idea what he's doing, so that'll be a surprise. For me on this project, while you guys aren't watching me for the next couple of weeks, I will continue to sand this. Most likely I will have this panel back on and ready to be prepped for paint, which is sanding and things like that. But the next time you see me in 2 weeks, I will be starting to go through, there are 2 engines in this, and I'll be starting to go through to clean and decorrosion, that's not a word, but it works, and just kind of do the best we can, once again, to preserve what we have. They're a little bit different because there's a lot of hoses, there's a lot of wires, so it's a little bit of a different process than just doing this kind of thing. So that's what you have to look forward to for the next time you see me. I don't know if you can see all the way over here, but there's where this was painted. Not only is there a ton of pitting and very deep rust here, but you can see where it's started to bubble up. I mean, that'll just come right off. And this is another place that I would use the heavier duty spot. What you can essentially tell is where the seams are is going to be the worst for the corrosion, because that's where, even though we do the best we can to seal everything, we can get water in there. Once again, the salt air does not help us. And so it's really, this I'm not very surprised about. But some places I was, and in the engines especially, you'll see what I'm talking about when I get there. This one in particular behind me is absolutely awful. So I'll make sure not to touch that whatsoever before I see you guys again, so you see the grossness. That's really all the time we have for today. Once again, I'm Kate Good, aircraft restoration specialist at the Intrepid Museum, and I really hope that you join us next time. Next week is Peter working on the Sea Cobra, and then the following week I will be back every Wednesday from 1 to about 2 o'clock. And it's been great seeing you today.